Consciousness is the way we are aware of both our thoughts and the world around us. People have debated what it really is for a long time. Some think it's the same as the mind, while others see it as a part of the mind. In the past, it was about your inner thoughts, private thinking, and imagination. Nowadays, it covers everything from thinking and feeling to being aware of being aware. The many different ideas about consciousness make us wonder if we are asking the right questions. People describe consciousness in various ways, from simply being awake to exploring your inner self. Some say it's like a continuous stream of thoughts, while others think it's a mental state or process in the brain. In the late 20th century, some philosophers like Hamlin, Rorty, and Wilkes disagreed with Cahin, Hardy, and Mudrack about whether Aristotle even talked about consciousness. Aristotle didn't use a specific word for it, which was done later by John Locke. Castian argues that for Aristotle, what we call consciousness today was similar to what he called perceptual awareness. The idea of modern consciousness is often linked to John Locke's essay concerning human understanding from 1690. Locke defined consciousness as the perception of what happens in a person's own mind. This idea influenced how people in the 18th century thought about consciousness and even appeared in Samuel Johnson's dictionary in 1755. The English words conscious and consciousness go back to the 50s. Conscious originally came from the Latin conscious, which meant knowing with, but in Latin it didn't mean the same thing as in English. In Latin it meant knowing together or sharing knowledge with others. There was Latin phrases like conscious sibi, which meant know within oneself, and it had a similar meaning to the modern English conscious. In the 50s, conscious in English kept the Latin meaning. For example, Thomas Hobbes wrote that when two or more people knew the same thing, they were conscious of it to one another. But Locke's definition in 1690 shows a change in meaning. There is a related Latin word, conscientia, which mainly means moral conscience, but in a literal sense, it means shared knowledge. This word first appeared in Latin legal texts by writers like Cicero. Here, conscientia was the knowledge a witness had about something someone else did. René Descartes is often seen as the first philosopher to use conscientia in a way that's closer to our modern use of conscience. In one of his works, he talked about conscience or internal testimony. Over centuries, the definitions of consciousness have evolved and caused some debates. It can mean different things, like being aware of your inner thoughts or knowing something within yourself. It can also refer to being aware of external things or having feelings, thoughts, and sensations. Some say it's what separates the mind from the physical world. In everyday dictionaries like Webster's Third New International Dictionary, consciousness is described as understanding something within yourself or being aware of something outside you. It can be related to your feelings, thoughts, and even your sense of belonging, like class consciousness. Philosophers use their own language to clarify things. They talk about consciousness in four main ways: general knowledge, intentionality, introspection, and phenomenal experience. Introspection is when you look inside your mind, and phenomenal experience is what it feels like to have an experience, like tasting something or thinking in words. Some think introspection and phenomenality are separate, but that's debated. Defining consciousness precisely is tricky, and some think it's impossible. Stuart Sutherland in the Macmillan Dictionary of Psychology was skeptical and said that it's tough to define consciousness without already knowing what it means. He also pointed out that people can't agree on its meaning. Some believe it's one clear thing, while others think it has many different meanings or should be removed from our understanding of the mind. So, the meaning of consciousness isn't set in stone, and people have different ideas about it. Western philosophers like Descartes and Locke have long grappled with understanding consciousness and how it fits into our understanding of the world. This question is a big deal in both continental and analytic philosophy, which focus on phenomenology and the philosophy of mind. Consciousness is also a hot topic in interdisciplinary research in cognitive science, which combines psychology, linguistics, anthropology, neuropsychology, and neuroscience. They are trying to figure out what it means for information to be in our consciousness, looking at both the brain and the mind. In medicine, we check someone's consciousness by seeing how awake and responsive they are. It's like a sliding scale from being fully awake and aware to being confused, delirious, losing the ability to communicate, and finally not responding to pain. This helps us understand the state of people who are very ill, in a coma, or under anesthesia, and how to help when their consciousness is affected. We measure it with scales like the Glasgow Coma Scale. people in general have different intuitions about what consciousness means. Some strongly believe in it, while others are skeptical, thinking it might not make sense or might be based on illusions. For instance, Gilbert Ryle argued that our traditional idea of consciousness separates the mind and the body wrongly. He suggests we should talk about individuals acting in the world, not separate things like the mind or consciousness. Philosophers also talk about different types of consciousness. Ned Block, for example, made a distinction between phenomenal consciousness, how it feels to have an experience, and access consciousness, how we can use that information. Some argue that there might be even more kinds of consciousness. Another topic is understanding consciousness itself or what's inside it. Some see it as a continuously changing field where things come and go. Others debate how mental processes like consciousness connect to physical processes like what happens in the brain. There are different ideas like dualism where they are separate, or monism where they are connected. In modern times, many look at psychology, neuroscience, and artificial intelligence to explain consciousness. They try to understand how our brains work and how they relate to our experiences. Some even consider quantum mechanics as a way to explain parts of consciousness, although this idea is not widely accepted. One tricky problem is the problem of other minds. If we can only know our consciousness from the inside, how can we be sure others have it too? People usually think other people are conscious because they act like us, but this explanation has some issues. Some philosophers argue that we believe others are conscious because of what they can do, including telling us about their experiences. Scientists initially avoided studying consciousness because it seemed too subjective, but in 1975, George Mandler distinguished between slow conscious processes and fast unconscious ones. In the 1980s, more researchers got interested in consciousness studies, leading to experiments and publications. Modern studies use psychological experiments and case studies of altered consciousness due to various factors like trauma, illness, or drugs. They aim to assess consciousness in humans and animals and understand the brain mechanisms. Conducting experiments on consciousness is tricky because there is no universally accepted definition. Researchers often rely on verbal reports from human subjects, even though they have limitations like possible errors. In the medical field, consciousness is assessed through verbal behavior, arousal, brain activity, and purposeful movement. Some studies show that people can behave purposefully even when they report a lack of awareness. There is the mirror test for self-awareness, which some animals pass, including humans, great apes, dolphins, and more. Scientists also studied the neurocorrelates of consciousness, looking for brain activity patterns related to conscious awareness. Various theories and models try to explain how consciousness works, but there is no one-size-fits-all answer. The origin and purpose of consciousness in evolution are debated. Some see it as a byproduct, while others think it might have survival value. Altered state of consciousness can result from sleep, dreams, partial epileptic seizures, or psychoactive drugs. These states can affect thinking, time perception, emotions, and body awareness. Scientists continue to explore this phenomena. Overall, the study of consciousness is a complex and evolving field with much still to learn and understand. The medical approach to consciousness focuses on assessing a person's level of consciousness, especially in cases of brain damage, disease, toxins, or anesthesia. It ranges from a low level, like coma or brain death, to full alertness and responsiveness. Doctors use a few methods to assess consciousness. A simple one involves checking if the patient can move, react to stimuli, and answer questions about their name, location, and time. If they can, they are considered fully conscious. A more complex procedure, called a neurological examination, is done by neurologists in hospitals. It involves various tests like assessing reflexes and language skills. The Glasgow Coma Scale is often used with a score from 3 to 15, indicating the level of consciousness. There are disorders of consciousness, including locked-in syndrome, aware but paralyzed, minimally conscious state, intermittent awareness, persistent vegetative state, sleep-wake cycles but no awareness, chronic coma, lack of awareness and sleep-wake cycles, and brain death, total loss of consciousness. Anosognosia is another disorder where patients don't realize or deny their own disabilities, often due to brain damage. For example, some patients with hemispatial neglect can't recognize if they are paralyzed on one side of their body, even though it's obvious to others. In children, before the ages of 5 to 7, children are believed to lack a certain level of self-awareness or introspective consciousness. This means they might not have a full understanding of their own thoughts and emotions. Language is seen as a tool that helps humans develop a unique form of consciousness called autobiographical consciousness. This type of consciousness allows individuals to reflect on their own experiences and understand the difference between their thoughts and the thoughts of others. This development is linked to something called theory of mind, which involves understanding the that others have different beliefs, desires, emotions, and thoughts. Theory of mind typically emerges in children around 5 to 6 years of age. In animals, the question of whether animals are conscious is difficult to answer due to their inability to express their experiences through human language. Some people believe that certain animals like cats and dogs are conscious, while others like insects might not be. It's hard to pinpoint the source of this intuition. The idea of animal consciousness has been debated for a long time. Some argue that we can never truly know if animals are conscious, while others point to behaviors that suggest animals hold beliefs about things they can't directly perceive. In 2012, a group of scientists declared that animals do have consciousness, including mammals and birds. They argue that these animals have the neural capacity for consciousness and intentional behaviors. In artificial intelligence (AI), the concept of creating conscious machines has a long history in mythology, but it gained more attention in the field of AI. Alan Turing proposed the Turing test, which suggests that a computer can be considered conscious if it can imitate a human well enough to deceive human interrogators. The idea of machine consciousness is still debated. Some argue that passing the Turing test implies consciousness, while others disagree. John Searle introduced the Chinese room argument, which challenges the idea that computers can be truly conscious. He suggests that consciousness involves more than just processing information. There is ongoing debate about whether machines can be conscious and whether consciousness requires more than just the ability to mimic human behavior. In summary, the question of consciousness in children, animals, and AI is a complex and ongoing topic of debate in various fields with no easy answers. Stream of consciousness, as described by William James, is the idea that our thoughts flow continuously like a river. There are 5 key characteristics to this concept. Every thought is part of our personal consciousness. Thoughts are always changing within our personal consciousness. Thoughts seem to flow smoothly and make sense. Our thoughts appear to be focused on things outside of themselves. We pay more attention to some aspects of these external things while ignoring others. A similar idea can be found in Buddhist philosophy called the mind stream or mental continuum. It suggests that our consciousness is constantly evolving with moment-to-moment changes driven by triggers such as sensory experiences or thoughts about the past, present, or future. These changes result in feelings, perceptions, and intentions. This concept applies to everyone, including scientists, and is influenced by various laws. Mindfulness in Buddhism aims to help individuals understand the nature of consciousness and its characteristics. In spiritual approaches, when we talk about consciousness, it often refers to how the mind relates to the world and sometimes to deeper truths beyond the physical world. Some thinkers like Richard Morris' book distinguish 3 types of consciousness: simple consciousness, basic awareness of the body found in animals; self-consciousness, awareness of being aware, unique to humans; cosmic consciousness, awareness of the universe, life, and order, only found in enlightened humans. Others, like Ken Wilber, see consciousness as a spectrum, ranging from everyday awareness to more profound levels of understanding. In conclusion, human consciousness is like a deep, mysterious river that's been a puzzle for ages. People have different views on what it means. Some see it as the way we are aware of our thoughts and the world, while others think it's about our connection to deeper truths or spirituality. This topic involves a lot of thinking and debate. Think of it as a journey of understanding ourselves and the universe. It's like a puzzle with pieces from philosophy, psychology, and science. Whether we are talking about the flow of thoughts in our minds or exploring the links between consciousness and spirituality, it's clear that there are many sides of this mystery. It challenges us to keep asking questions and seeking answers about who we are and what our consciousness means in the big picture of life. If you enjoyed this, please give it a like and subscribe for more. Also, we would love to know your thoughts, so feel free to comment and tell us what's your take on consciousness. Take care.